What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Undefeated Post Weigh-In Show, brought to you by Pub Sports Radio. Lions brought to you by the Superbook for a very special episode of the UFC 272 Undefeated Post Weigh-In Show. We're taking one final look at these athletes as they weigh in, as they face off, seeing if we can pick up on anything, see if a size discrepancy is bigger or smaller than we expected, see who is intense, see who is flinching, and that's where we try to make just one extra little bit. We make one extra decision, we make one extra choice, lock in some late action, maybe steal a little bit of extra money from our bookies, coming to you from the attic of my mother-in-law's house, as you can tell from my lovely assistant over here in the corner rocking the Die Hard MMA merchandise. First fight of the night, we've got Dustin Jacoby taking on Mihail Lord Oleksiejczuk. Dustin Jacoby came in at 205.5, Oleksiejczuk 206. Dustin Jacoby looked fantastic. I mean, he's thick. You can see some abs popping up underneath him. He's a big man. Mihail Oleksiejczuk came in, and he's a soft body. I mean, he looked a little pudgy. He's a guy that probably should be fighting at 185 if we're being real here. And then when they faced off, it was very apparent there's a significant size advantage for Dustin Jacoby. This is a spot that I've been looking at all week, and I don't know why, but something is telling me to stay off of it because Dustin Jacoby is massive here. He's much bigger than Mihail Lord Oleksiejczuk. He's been sitting at about minus 200 all week. Now he's minus 185. So I see nothing but love on Twitter, in the market. All of us handicappers, we all love Dustin Jacoby. The money's coming in on Mihail Lord Oleksiejczuk. Makes no sense to me, but that's a big enough red flag for me to be passing. If you look at the weigh-ins, you're getting reinforced. Everything you think you know is exactly what you see. Dustin Jacoby is the much bigger man. I favor him here in this spot. To this point, I have no bet on him, and I don't think I'm going to make one by Saturday. Next up, Klein taking on Devontae Smith. Both men came in at 156 pounds. Klein is an absolute tank. He did the one big arm flex move up there on the scale. Looked really good. Devontae Smith, he did the Buddy Jesus finger guns up on the scale today. Having a good time up there, looking excited. Holy abs, and yes, pun fully intended. They got off to a solid face-off. They size up really well. Klein seems like the bigger man. When they get nose to nose, Klein seems to have the much more thicker physical frame. This is a spot where I got in very early on Klein. I got plus 165 for 2 units. Beat a big line move. Money's coming in on Klein. He's about plus 130 right now. Minus 150 for Devontae Smith. I still like Klein. In fact, anytime you're getting dog money here in this spot, I would still be taking Klein. So this is a spot where I'm not going to add any more to my bet because I already got the best of the number. I already got 2 units on it. I don't really need more than that. But the size advantage for Klein, he's kind of a smaller dude. Sometimes he has a size disadvantage. The fact that he is the same size as his opponent here, potentially even bigger and stronger than his opponent here, I love this spot on Klein. I think he's a very live dog. I like it a lot. Tim Elliott taking on Tagir Ulenbekov is up next. Elliott came in at 126. Ulenbekov made 125.5. Elliott looked great, if I'm being honest. Totally focused up on the scale today. He's in great shape. Cut up more than we've seen, normally speaking. This might be the best I have ever seen Tim Elliott look. I know there was a long stretch for a little bit where they talked about how he was going out too much. He was partying between his fights, living it up in Vegas, and he has since moved away from all of that. He seems to have rededicated himself to his career, and he looks like he took this fight extremely seriously, and you can tell by his body. Tagir Ulenbekov, though, this guy is tall, he is skinny, and oh, is he shredded. He's big for the division, so it's tough for him to get down to this weight class. Question mark here, he came in rocking the face mask. Now, I'm not trying to make this political or get anything about that. I still wear a face mask sometimes in questionable larger group settings. Some places still have mandates. I'm not mask shaming anybody. But I gotta wonder if there was maybe a potential outbreak type of situation, because nobody else wore the mask, and nobody else has worn a mask for several weeks. It's been a while since we've seen a mask, since they dropped it. Even the people who are, mask supporters or COVID believers, they still have not been wearing masks the last couple of weeks since that stopped being a requirement at these face-offs and weigh-ins. So I don't really know how to analyze that. Just a strange little question, especially considering none of the other Russians came in wearing a mask. Makes a little baby red flag go off in my head that something may be there, as far as maybe he was in recent contact with somebody trying not to get the fight canceled, so he doesn't want to spread. I don't know, I'm grasping at straws here, but it was just weird. It was very strange, especially coming from a Russian, not somebody stateside that's used to having much stricter mandates. I don't know. Anyway, they face off. Height advantage is going to go to Tagir. We know that. He's always going to have the height advantage. But Elliott looked extremely excited, bouncing up and down on his toes, smiling, big old goofy grin on his face. Guys, I bet Tim Elliott here. This is another spot where I think there's a very live underdog in this spot. I think Tagir Ulenbekov is maybe the weakest of this Russian troop that is rolling into the UFC to take over. I think Tim Elliott can out-volume him on the feet. I think he can survive in these scrambles. There's a chance he snatches a neck at some point, and his wrestling has been really solid, so don't be shocked if Elliott gets on top of Tagir for a couple of exchanges. Gotta roll the dice with the dog here. I think I got plus 205. He's like plus 200 right now according to the Superbook odds, so you can still get a solid number there if you want to rock with me on the underdog here. Marina Moroes taking on Maria Agapova. These two names are confusing. These two should not be fighting each other because I can't seem to pronounce them when they're back-to-back like that. Moroes versus Agapova. Moroes came in at 125.5. Agapova came in at 126. Moroes looked extremely focused on the scales. We know what's going on with the Ukraine situation. She is going to be heavily invested this week, considering everything that's happening there with her friends, her family, her country. So she looked a little sucked out. Nothing to be afraid of or walk home or write home about. Moved very well. I'm not concerned. Agapova, big happy smile on the scale today. Gave a solid flex. She's looking good, guys. This is frustrating for me because I really like Agapova as a prospect. I feel like this is a spot where Moroes is maybe just a little bit more well-rounded in this spot, especially with that whole country behind her thing going on. I think she's got a lot more oomph coming into this fight, and I do think she has a path to victory over Agapova. I like Agapova more long-term. I like Moroes on Saturday, but it's terrifying because if I like Agapova long-term, if she makes those adjustments and improvements between fights much quicker than I'm anticipating, she might cost me some money here betting against her. This was a very intense face-off. Moroes looked so dialed in. I don't think I've ever seen her look this intense before. Agapova was smiling. She's the almost a Joker type. She doesn't ever take anything too serious. She's got a maniacal smile on her face. They shook hands, which was a little surprising considering the bad blood and everything going on with this background story here. So at least a little sign of respect there. Nick Negumereanu taken on, recap time. I did bet Moroes in this spot. I got a better line earlier in the week. I think I got plus 180, plus 175. She is now down to plus 155. So we beat another line movement here in this spot. That feels good. Still, again, this is a spot that I just think Agapova is too big of a favorite in this particular matchup. If you want to jump in on the dog, plus 155 isn't so bad. Nick Negumereanu taking on Kennedy and Chukwu. Negumereanu came in at 205.5 and Chukwu 206. Negumereanu is a tank. He gave a huge flex. That boy is thick. And Kennedy and Chukwu is huge. Big dude, looks solid on the scale, looking good. They face off. Kennedy looks like he's 2 weight classes larger than Nick Negumereanu. This line has stayed with Kennedy as a slight favorite essentially all week. People have been buying in on Nikolai Negumereanu the whole week. It's been slowly chipping that line down. Right now, Kennedy is a minus 135 favorite. You can get plus 115 on Nikolai Negumereanu. And guys, if it wasn't for Kennedy coming off that recent KO loss, I would be all in here. I would absolutely be all in here. Nikolai Negumereanu is not a good fighter. He is durable and he hits hard. Those are the only 2 things he has going for him. There are certain classes of fighters that will beat. He will do that so well in the UFC that he will hold a roster spot. He will be a very entertaining fighter, but he's not going anywhere. Kennedy has him outskilled everywhere, and Kennedy is massive. I want to bet Kennedy and Chukwu so badly, it's not even funny. The only reason that I'm not is because he got deaded in his last fight, and that was only a couple months ago. Da Un Jung hit him so hard, he face planted, and you just need more time for your brain and your body to recover than 2-3 months. I like Kennedy here at minus 135. I have not bet him. I am trying not to bet him. I'll be a little upset if he goes out there and wins because, like I said, I just simply do not believe in Mariano as a fighter at this level. I think Kennedy's going to have him beat, like I said, everywhere. He'll be able to use his height, use his reach, stay at range, jab this man to death, and he should coast to a decision or maybe a late finish. I just worry about his chin, and that's where a guy who's tough and a guy who hits hard can crash the pocket, close that distance, and land one big bomb and shatter the whole thing. So I have a hard time betting this one just because of that quick turnaround. If he had given 3 or 4 more months, if he had stayed out for 6 months, I'd be all over Kennedy in this spot. And the weigh-ins and the size difference just confirms my love for Kennedy in this spot. So I'm really struggling to try to maintain and not pull the trigger on this spot. I don't want to lose money on a fighter with a broken chin. Next up, Marina Rodriguez taking on Yan Xiaonan. Both women came in at 116. Marina Rodriguez gave a solid flex and immediately started drinking water. My alarm bells are going off. I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God. She's got such a bad weight cut that she is slamming water on the scales. She can't wait to get off to rehydrate. This is a massive problem. Run to your computer. Bet you no. She was making a statement, and later on she put out a tweet for all the people drinking beers out of shoes. No. You need to be drinking more water. And I'm like, all right, Marina. You've been my sleeper to take the belt in this weight class for years. I've been a massive fan of yours. I've backed you financially time and time again. But if you don't like my man Tai Tuivasa, if you don't like my man Boston Nick, if you can't hang with the shoeies, I'm going to have to cut ties. Shark Tank style. I'm out. I can't take it. Yan Xiaonan came on the scales, and I'll be honest, everybody, she looked worn. She looked exhausted. She moved well enough, so this is another one where I don't want to read too much into it, but it looks like it took everything she had to get down to 116, and if I'm being completely honest. When they face off, Marina Rodriguez was far and away the more intense of the two, and she has a decent height advantage here in this spot. We know she'll have the height and the reach advantage. It's the wrestling concern of Yan Xiaonan that I'm having a problem with. That's the thing that kind of keeps me off this. The weight cut definitely seems like a little bit of a red spot against Yan Xiaonan. I was already looking at Marina Rodriguez. I still like Marina Rodriguez, but kind of the only option here is parlays. You've got minus 275 on Marina, plus 235 on Yan, and I know a lot of people, a lot of bettors that I really respect who are coming in here on Yan Xiaonan. It's one of those spots where I can understand that the line is too wide. I think it is too. But at the end of the day, I do think Marina Rodriguez gets her hand raised. So that'd be the side that I would be looking at. Jalen Turner taking on Jamie Mullarkey. Jalen Turner came in and made 156. Mullarkey made 155.5. Turner is so tall. He gave a bow up on the scale today. There weren't any real issues, but I'm not going to lie. I didn't like his body language. The way he was kind of shuffling up to the scale didn't really inspire much confidence. Jamie Mullarkey, on the other hand, no concerns, solid shape. He's not too big for this weight class or anything. But then Jalen Turner put out a tweet. He said, I have no idea how I make weight. I'm going to be 175 or 180 pounds come fight night. And when we look at the face-offs, the ceremonial weigh-ins, those body language cues were gone. Jalen Turner rehydrated, it looks like pretty damn well because he looked absolutely fine. And when they face off, he is massive. There's a huge size advantage here for Jalen Turner. Mullarkey, to his credit, not backing down whatsoever. This guy's a tough son of a bitch. He's not going to face off against anybody and get punked. This was a great face off. I love both of these guys. I have a hard time betting this one because I don't really want to go against either of these individuals. I'm on Jalen Turner, and I'm on Jalen Turner big. I got minus 130 earlier in the week, 3.9 units to win 3 at that line. He's a minus 155 favorite now, so again, we beat a nice little line move. I know, again, some smart people who are on Jamie Mullarkey. He's an absolute junkyard dog. He will fight for your money any day of the week. I just think this is a bad matchup for him, and honestly, this is a spot where I would be looking to pull the shoot. I'd be terrified of what I saw at the scales for Jalen Turner if they had had a face-off and he looked awful immediately after the weigh-ins. But thankfully for the pay-per-views, we get that break. We get the ceremonial weigh-ins that are a couple of hours later. I actually get to see how these fighters rehydrate and how they look after having a little bit of time to get it together. And that gives me all the reassurance I need on Jalen Turner. The fact that he looked fine at these ceremonial face-offs, I think he's going to look fine in the cage tomorrow night. Next up, Sergey Spivak taking on Greg Hardy. Sergey Spivak came in at 243.5 pounds. Hardy tipping the scales at 266 today. Sergey is a big, fluffy man. He gave his usual flex. Hardy got up there, gave a salute to everybody, and you could tell he was having a hard time. He was struggling. This man made it very, very public this week that he was cutting down from 310 pounds in just a few days. This guy cut 50 pounds. That can't be healthy, but he is a big, big dude. When they got to the ceremonial face-offs, much like Jalen Turner, Greg Hardy looked fantastic. He had plenty of energy. He moved well, bouncing up and down on his toes. This guy really is a freak athlete. There's a reason he made it to the NFL level. When they faced off, they size up extremely well. Sergey Spivak didn't look too much smaller, but Hardy was thicker. This is one of those spots where you're like, there is a 20-pound weigh-in difference. There's going to be a 50-pound fight night difference. Like, Hardy is big. So, I've had this weird hair on the back of my neck feeling all week that somehow Greg Hardy comes out here and just floors Sergey Spivak. I think he's made some serious improvements in his game. I think he got overzealous against Tai Tuivasa, and that's the only reason he didn't knock that man out that night, because what would this line be if he had knocked out Tai Tuivasa instead of the other way around? And look what Tai has gone on to do. This is just a crazy spot where I think Hardy has made some mistakes, slipped up, looked bad his last fight. Everyone remembers what happened when he got put on his back the last time. Sergey Spivak, I think, is going to have a much harder time taking down Greg Hardy. At least I hope he will. I went ahead and I pulled that trigger. You can get plus 170 on Greg Hardy. I got 1 unit on him myself. I don't hate the knockout prop. You can get plus 300 on Greg Hardy by knockout. That's a spot that I think absolutely has legs. It's his best path to victory. We've seen Sergey Spivak get hurt before. But one thing I do want to kind of caution everybody on is that Sergey Spivak has been a little timid in the past, and Greg Hardy has been known to point fight. So while I think there is the upside for the knockout, don't rule out that Greg Hardy can win a decision here. Don't rule out that he can stuff a couple takedowns, slow the pace of this fight down, and then point fight his way to a 15-minute decision. Because if Sergey can't get the takedowns, he's going to be timid. He'll stay at range. He'll want to avoid the big power. It's crazy to say, but Greg Hardy absolutely can win a 15-minute decision in this spot, which is why I'm laying the money line instead of taking a prop. Plus 170 is plenty in this spot. You don't need to go KO or decision. Have them both included. Plus 170 is the spot, in my opinion. Not a huge bet, 1 unit shot. Kevin Holland taking on Alex Oliveira. Both men came in at 170 pounds. Holland looking good. He's cut up down here, his new home at 170. Smacked his own ass on the way out the door. You love to see that. Alex Oliveira smiling and joking on the scale. This man looks solid as well. And Holland was enjoying the moment at the weigh-ins. This guy's always a goofball. I love the energy that he brings. This was a really good face-off, and these guys size up extremely well. I expected Holland to have much more of a size advantage dropping down to this weight class. He's been fighting guys up at 185 where he had a size advantage over some of them for quite some time. Here he is at 170 fighting a guy who used to fight at 155, and they are toe-to-toe. Oliveira is a big dude. This is a spot that I am terrified to do anything with because I think Kevin Holland wins this fight. He's a minus 350 favorite though. We know he's been working on his wrestling, but is it ready? I don't know yet. We'll find out on Saturday. I think Alex Oliveira has an extremely clear path to victory in the grappling realm for this particular fight, with the size up, with seeing what they look like next to each other. If Holland isn't on his on point wrestling, Alex Oliveira can win this fight. Absolutely. I do tend to think that Holland is going to be able to find his way to a finish in this spot, kind of the way he did Jacare Souza, where he was just too strong, kind of shucked him off and hit him with a big bomb, and that's all she wrote. I think he can submit Alex Oliveira. Alex Oliveira came out and said he was going to knock out Kevin Holland. Good luck with that, buddy. Kevin Holland likes to work with his hands, so if Alex comes out and looks for a slugfest, I think that's going to end with Kevin Holland via knockout. So I'm kind of looking at Holland inside the distance at minus 110. But at the same time, I'm really hesitant to trust this man with my money until we see that next version, that next level of him, because they are pricing him like he's already turned that corner. We have yet to see it. Edson Barboza taking on Bryce Mitchell coming up next. Both guys came in at 145.5. Edson Barboza absolutely shredded, folks. This man, him and Aldo, my Brazilian balloons, they cut themselves down so far, have no idea how they make the weight, and then they swell way back up by fight night. Bryce Mitchell, he had, okay, shout out to my guy, Moise Noise on Twitter. He spotted this. If you look at Bryce Mitchell's right arm, there's some significant bruising wrapped all the way around that arm. It looks like the type of bruising from internal bleeding. This looks like a bicep tear. And if that's the case, we've got a grappling heavy fighter, a guy who must get this fight to the ground with a potential arm injury. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if you've done any training where you do any type of wrestling or grappling, or hell, even if you've just lifted up a 50-pound cement bag over your shoulder, you know you need your arms, your biceps. You got to be able to clench those hands together and get your legs involved, squatted up over your shoulder. That is a lot harder to do with a torn bicep. The grip strength for your hands is off. The strength of your arms squeezing the bag together, that is not quite what it should be. That's a big red flag in my opinion. Again, I am not a medical doctor. I am simply a degenerate gambler who is using his eyes and trying to tell you what I'm coming to for my conclusions here and seeing if we can spot any opportunities. I have been on the fence about this fight all week. I initially leaned to Edson Barboza because I think he can defend enough takedowns to keep this fight standing and kind of pepper his opponent up. Throughout the course of the week, I've kind of gotten a little bit wet feet here. I feel like Bryce Mitchell is going to pull an Ortega on us. He's been gone for 2 years, and I feel like he's going to come back a better version of himself. He absolutely has to come back a better version of himself after a 2-year layoff. But if he comes in injured, if he comes in with one arm, all that, the grappling path to victory, that is even harder to pull off now than it was before. It was already a tall order to come in here and take down Edson Barboza and grapple him for 15 minutes. Now it's an even taller order because you're not functioning correctly and your body doesn't have the strength it needs to go for 15 minutes. I can't argue with Edson Barboza being a live dog here whatsoever. It's one of those spots where just win, baby. I feel like Bryce Mitchell wins this fight somehow. I don't know how. I don't know why. That's been my feeling all week. But seeing that arm injury, I'm like, that plus 140 on Edson Barboza is mighty tempting. I'm going to have to sit on this one. I'm going to have to stew on this one tonight. Again, I lock all my plays in online. Follow me at Die MMA Pod on Twitter. If I end up moving on this one, I will lock it in. I'll tweet it out. I'll post it on Instagram. You'll see if I end up on this fight. I may end up just entirely passing, or maybe we take a look at the under. Because if Bryce Mitchell were to come into this fight a little under the weather, if he was to come into this fight not 100%, he probably goes for broke. He probably tries to crowd Edson Barboza, hurt him, submit him early, get this man out of there, but then that leaves him no plan B. And if he does something along those lines, he will be a sitting duck on the feet for a man like Edson Barboza, and I don't know if he can take 15 rounds worth of punishment. This makes me consider a under 2.5 violence bet. That line is minus 115 at Superbook right now, and I would potentially be leaning towards violence after seeing what I saw on the scales today. Co-main event time, Rafael dos Anjos taking on Renato Moicano. This is a 160-pound catch weight. Renato Moicano flying in here on short notice to save the day. Rafael dos Anjos looked dialed in, absolutely incredible physique. This man was cut up. His opponent, Renato Moicano, no issues, a bit soft. We got to give him a little bit of a pass there because he's coming in on short notice, so you can't expect him to be all abbed up or anything in this spot, but it was a very quick weigh-in. When they face off, significant height advantage for Renato Moicano. This dude is massive. It's insane to me. One of the things that I talked about for this fight was that Rafael dos Anjos was too big for 155, moved up to 170. He's the guy with the bigger, weight class experience. He's the guy that's fought up a weight class and had success up at 170, whereas Moicano is a guy that cuts himself all the way down to 145. Like, he's a guy that went down 2 weight classes, so now they're kind of meeting in the middle. You'd expect the physicality and the strength advantage to go to Rafael dos Anjos, a man who's used to going up rather than going down. I mean, he would die cutting himself down to 145, whereas Renato Moicano kind of kills himself going down to 145, but at least he can pull it off. He's huge. He's absolutely huge. That terrified me just a little bit. Now, this is a spot where I kind of waited for this line to get bought down on. Money has been coming in on Renato Moicano, at least it was earlier in the week. Drove this number down for me. I got minus 165 on Rafael dos Anjos, and then it immediately ballooned back up. Money started coming back the other way when people figured out that I feel like Rafael dos Anjos is kind of the rightful side here. He got all the way back up to about 190. Now, looking at Superbook, they still have it sitting at that minus 165 price tag. Just want to kind of look at the rest of the market and see how this line has fluctuated. It looks like the market's very confused on this fight. Get this, I see minus 160, I see minus 175, I see minus 200, I see minus 180, I see minus 175. This line is all over the place. People don't know what to do with this particular matchup. Some people are liking the dog, some people are liking the favorite. I'm rocking Rafael dos Anjos. I got 3.3 units at minus 165 to win 2 units. This is a 5-round co-main event. I simply think that the pace that Rafael dos Anjos puts on is going to be too much for Moicano. He's going to fade the longer this fight goes. The wrestling pedigree of dos Anjos, maybe he fails those first couple takedowns early because of the size of the younger man, but the longer the fight goes, the more that's going to chip into an already questionable gas tank, flying 2 time zones over on 48 hours notice, and then a guy who's already got a questionable chin, a questionable gas tank, gets pushed into the later rounds. This is a tall order for Moicano, folks. If he gets it done, it's probably early. I don't mind a violence bet if you can get the under 4.5, because I think that Rafael dos Anjos caves Moicano in later in the fight the deeper it goes. But if Moicano's going to win it, it's probably going to be in round 1 or 2 when he's fresh, when he's big, when he can bully Rafael dos Anjos and get the win early. That's the read on the fight. I'm on RDA. Got to side with the old veteran dog here for this one. Colby Covington taking on Jorge Masvidal in your main event of the evening. Colby made 170 on the dot. Oh, no, it looks like both guys made 170.5. Sorry about that. I see the point, and I must have missed the 5 with my pinky there when I was typing this morning. Big smile, putting on a show as always. Blow and kiss, got his Bang energy drinks. Colby being himself, no issues whatsoever. Masvidal, on the other hand, walked in with a towel on. He had his wet hair. This looked like a really rough cut. Like, he literally got out of the sauna to come weigh in. He looked like he was having a bit of a tough time. Now, he's made tough cuts before. The first Usman fight comes to mind. He's done this a million times. I'm not too worried about him. I think he'll still fight up to his potential. Just need to make note of it. The other thing we want to make note of is that Masvidal looked incredible. The shape that he was in today, I don't think I've ever seen him in that kind of shape. You look at his last couple of weigh-ins, his last couple fights, he doesn't ever have abs popping the way he did this time. This is a spot where he is absolutely coming to hurt Colby Covington, and it looks like he trained accordingly. They wouldn't even let these guys get close. Dana was like hanging on to Masvidal's hand so they couldn't touch each other because Masvidal was like leaning in, trying to get as close as possible. You know he wanted to smack Colby. You know he was waiting for Dana to slip up just a little bit so he could slap Colby Covington one time. Man, this is going to be fun. I can't wait for this main event. Colby Covington, minus 320 over on Superbook, plus 265 on Masvidal. This is a spot where I've leaned all week to Colby Covington. I do think he's the rightful favorite. I think it makes sense. He's a guy he would be the champion if it wasn't for Kamaru Usman. He's the number 2 guy in the division. Masvidal is a flash in the pan, in my opinion. He's getting older. He hasn't had success against elite level competition at 155 or at 170. I just don't see him being able to beat Colby Covington unless he gets him with that flying knee, which, by the way, you saw the behind-the-scenes clip when they went out for the press conference, and he, Captain Morgan'd his leg up so Colby could see it and was, shining his knee. That was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. That's hilarious. So, Masvidal absolutely open and live for the knockout if he lands well. But I think this is going to be a classic Colby Covington fight where he just grinds away. You embrace that wrestling, take your opponent down, rinse and repeat, and he probably wins a decision. If Masvidal puts everything into a finish, again, this is another spot where he potentially might not leave himself a parachute. Colby Covington could potentially finish him later. Now, he's not a finisher. He's not a guy that's been known to do that. But if there was ever somebody he was going to put that extra oomph into to try to get them out of the cage, this would be that time. So I'm kind of thinking sprinkle rounds 4 and round 5 for Colby Covington. I like Colby. I don't have any bets on him specifically yet. May throw him into a parlay. May do the combo prop where it's Colby rounds 4, 5, or decision. You get like minus 120 on that or minus 140, something like that. I got to look that one back up. They don't have it at Superbook. But I think Colby's the side, personally. I've thought that all week. I'm not budging off of that. This is going to be a fun fight. This is going to be a fun card. That is the Undefeated Post Weigh-In Show, folks. Put your comment down below who you think had the worst weigh-in today. Let me know your favorite bet for tomorrow. Good luck on all your degenerate action, everybody. Let's make some cash this week. Let's go. Let's roll.